Hello and welcome to our webinar, Creating the Plan for Student Success and Wellness. I'm Nadira and I'm very pleased to be presenting this webinar for you today. Okay, so here's a brief agenda of what we're going to be covering today. There are going to be 6 major categories that we'll kind of touch on, starting with aimsweb basics, going all the way down into behavior and dyslexia. And hopefully by the end of our time together, you'll see how all 6 of these elements really work together in the platform. Now, it has been a few years since I've been outside of the classroom, but from what I can remember, every teacher is exposed to a mosaic of student learners. You have those in need of additional support, they require frequent monitoring, while other students benefit from a few benchmarking sessions or screenings throughout the school year. But what schedule and tools should we be using to meet every student's needs while running an efficient classroom? We have found that a reliable screening or benchmarking schedule can simplify your process and optimize your time in the classroom. This platform, aimswebPlus, is going to be a power tool for teachers in the classroom. Early intervention is the key to success. Research has found that early identification of at-risk students leads to increased success both in and outside of the classroom. With aimswebPlus, you can measure what matters when it matters. This includes everything you see here, plus meeting accountability requirements, uncovering learning gaps faster and more accurately, screening and monitoring students in one seamless system, and track students' progress for more effective instruction and intervention. Users of aimsweb 1.0 remember its great reputation from the use of curriculum-based measurement. Curriculum-based measurement involved the quick assessment of very isolated skills. An example of this will be oral reading fluency. These assessments are brief to administer and are hugely supported in research as effective screening measures and progress monitoring measures. We know that we need to introduce targeted, short-term intervention strategies supplemented by classroom instruction for students to be successful. The curriculum-based measurement, CBM assessments, within aimswebPlus will provide teachers like yourselves fast and accurate information about student performance. That means faster decisions about curriculum and instructional strategies, which can be constantly monitored for progress. Therefore, teachers can tailor student goals and instructional programs anytime during the school year. The new assessment model of aimswebPlus will continue to have the curriculum-based measures, but we've also added standard-based assessments to assess some of those more integrated, complex skills, such as reading comprehension, math problem solving, and vocabulary. These assessments also provide us with rich reporting that can help differentiate the instruction of items. When you do a benchmark assessment, you're going to be giving assessments from each of these types of measurements. aimswebPlus will combine these scores to provide an overall composite score. You'll get one for reading or early literacy and one for math or early numeracy. This composite score will help you to evaluate the overall risk and then help prioritize resources within your school. From our training experts, I wanted to introduce you to the aimswebPlus Best Practices Assessment Cycle. Just to reiterate that aimswebPlus is meant to be that driving data force behind the entire MTSS RTI process, from benchmarking to looking at the data, to planning instruction, to monitoring progress, and then making adjustments as needed. Benchmark assessments, or universal screening, typically occur 3 times in the year: fall, winter, and then again in spring. Benchmark assessments are assessments administered periodically throughout the school year during a curriculum sequence to evaluate students' knowledge and skills relative to an explicit set of longer-term learning goals. The design and choice of benchmark assessments is driven by the purpose, the intended users, and the uses of the instrument. Benchmark assessment can inform policy, instructional planning, and decision-making at the classroom, school, or district levels. When using aimswebPlus as your universal screener, you'll benchmark all students. For the benchmark assessment, you're always going to be assessing on grade level skills. This is a somewhat unique feature to aimswebPlus when compared to other adaptive assessments. This allows you to see how your students are progressing on or with grade level expectations. Benchmark results will also allow you to quickly identify students in both general education and special education who are at risk and what their needs might be. Conducting the assessment at multiple times in the year will also allow you to assess growth over time for students in both Tiers 1 and in Tiers 3. aimswebPlus also helps with progress monitoring. You will do progress monitoring with only select few students, likely those in Tier 3, receiving some type of supplemental instruction so you can monitor the effectiveness of those interventions. What's great about the aimswebPlus progress monitoring element is that instead of being tied to the students at the grade level, you're able to drill down to the student's instructional level and zero in only on those skills that you're targeting in the intervention. So for example, if we have a second grader that we're working with and he needs to work on isolated word decoding, we have the flexibility to monitor him at that level. In effect, your progress monitoring assessments are going to be brief and sensitive to measuring student growth. Progress monitoring, as I'm sure you guys all know, is a very important tool for teachers. We all know that there is no perfect intervention program or instructional strategy, and so progress monitoring will give teachers a way to know which students their instruction is working for and which students are not benefiting from that instruction. So by using this as an objective, and as an efficient means of gathering data, teachers can adjust their instruction to best meet the needs of all their students. This is going to be a brief list of some of the more popular measures that are offered in aimswebPlus, grouped by composite area. The grade levels are based on which skills are focused on during the benchmark for these grade levels. However, keep in mind that many of these measures can be assessed off of grade level outside of the benchmark assessment. So for example, if we have a first grader who needs a word reading fluency goal, we have the flexibility to modify that within the system. Another point to remember is that we're never going to be giving all of these measures to one student at one time. We're likely only going to be pulling 4 or 5 assessments from each of the boxes, and which assessment you use is dictated by the skills focused on at that grade level and is outlined within the program. So I know up here I only actually have 4 points in each box, and that's because there's so many measures within aimsweb, I didn't want to overwhelm the slide. And so like I said, this is just a few of the more popular measures, and in a regular testing environment, we would only be using 4 or 5 measures. So we'll touch on dyslexia a little bit. There is a large achievement gap between students with and without dyslexia in kindergarten to grade 1, and the gap will persist throughout high school. There is a need for early identification and intervention for students who are at risk to prevent academic failure. We can use the Shaywitz Dyslexia Screener as an indication of potential areas of weakness due to its predictive abilities. The Shaywitz is a brief teacher survey used to identify at-risk students in the area of dyslexia. It is only intended for students experiencing difficulties, and the aimswebPlus system will alert us to those students who are recommended for the screener, as it's able to identify students who have a potential disability, and it will not pick up the students who do not. It's only 5 minutes long. It's a digital form, and scoring is done automatically within the system. There is going to be an emphasis on phonological, linguistic, and academic performance. Ratings are going to be based on classroom teacher observations, and teachers are actually going to be the best responders for filling out these forms, but there is going to be a need to interpret and disseminate the results appropriately. Now, this kind of model really encourages collaborative efforts between professionals from different disciplines and often across general and special education perspectives. The model that we're going to be using for dyslexia identification, we're looking for some screeners in the pre-reader difficulties like phonics and letter knowledge, as well as reader difficulties like word decoding, like word reading and decoding, written expression, reading comprehension, and listening comprehension. Causes and correlations we're looking for are going to be those with phonological processing and orthographical processing. And the risk factors can include language impairment as well as poor receptive vocabulary. There are going to be two forms. Form 1 is for students from 5 years to 6 years, 11 months, and that'll consist of 10 items. And then Form B is going to be from students 6 years to 7 years, 11 months, and consists of 12 items. A question that you may have at this stage is, should we be giving more than one screener a year? And to which I'll answer that this is going to be a rating form, which means we are not going to expect the results to change as frequently over time as we would for academic and ability assessments. From the beginning and at the end of the year should be enough to gauge if the students who were at risk are still at risk. Okay, the BAS3 BEST is also within aimswebPlus, and it is designed to quickly and efficiently assess the behavioral and emotional risks, as well as the overall mental health status of children aged 3 all the way up to 18 years and 11 months. It is generally used as an intake screener in private practice or as a group-wide screening tool for Tier 1 students in the schools. As it is a standardized way to help identify emotional strengths and weaknesses, and it is also used to promote student success. As we know, behavior directly influences academic performance, and the hope is to identify the students early before their emotions impact their lives. There are going to be teacher rating forms divided into preschool as well as child and adolescent ages, and it generally takes about 5 to 10 minutes for the rater to complete the form. The scores are going to be provided for the following areas. You have behavioral and emotional risk index, externalizing risk index, internalizing risk index, adaptive skills risk index, self-regulation risk index, and a personal adjustment risk index. This assessment is pretty well known, and it's known for being multidimensional, as it'll measure different aspects in both behavior and personality. It includes positive adaptive dimensions like leadership traits and negative clinical dimensions like anxiety or depression. Clinicians can take this information to make a diagnosis. The overall executive functioning index will also take into consideration items from the problem-solving index, attentional control, behavioral and emotional control to determine whether a student is having difficulty with managing or regulating themselves. ADHD and other disorders may also be alerted as a result. Administration and scoring for aimswebPlus, the Shaywitz, as well as the BAS3 BEST are securely completed and scored within the aimswebPlus platform within minutes. In kindergarten and in the first grade, students will use printed test materials while teachers score the measures online. And this can be done on almost any web-enabled device with a supported browser, including Chromebooks and tablets. Students in grades 2 all the way up to grade 8 can take tests independently online using similar devices. Once assessment data is entered into the system, aimswebPlus reports the results immediately. aimswebPlus provides comprehensive reporting for each screening and monitoring component. Each report highlights both performance and progress, enabling educators to make informed decisions about students and instruction. Reports will include data for students, classrooms, grades, schools, as well as districts, and other student norms at the district level. Student reports can be generated in either HTML or PDF format and can be filtered to display the precise data needed. The level of information available on each report is going to be based on the user's role and access level within the platform. There are also going to be parent-friendly screening and progress monitoring results. And we know learning is a very complex process. So I want us to start thinking about how we can use this platform as a tool that can be used for feedback and determining where students are in their learning development without depersonalizing the learning process and merging formative assessment with emerging technology. Using technology to strengthen the relationship between learners, teachers, their extended learning support teams. Parents, teachers, policymakers, school administrators, everybody needs the better tools to diagnose where and why learning gaps exist and assess what strategies they can employ to turn things around. High quality data and evidence is essential for both tasks. The ultimate value of information is not in its production, but in its use. So herein lies one of the biggest challenges of translating information into actionable insights. To move from data generation to impact, decision makers must first take note of the available data, interpret it, and then link it to the roles they play in the education system. Better decision-making will then lead to stronger monitoring and accountability. What I mean by that is rather than making decisions based on gut instinct or personal priorities or anecdotal evidence, decision makers can use data from aimswebPlus to pinpoint problems and assess the merits of possible solutions. In this respect, we can use the empirical data and analysis to help decision makers tackle difficult questions of how to bolster learning, reduce wasteful spending, and target resources efficiently to areas of greatest need or highest return. In turn, that'll then translate to stronger monitoring and accountability. And the regular connection of data and information allows for more consistent assessment of performance at the school for both students, teachers, schools, and the policy level based on objective performance indicators and targets. Such assessments help all stakeholders, including parents and the public, stay up to date on how the education system is performing. The use of this tool will also open the conversation for learning and adaptation by teachers and how we can restore that confidence goals are met within the school. The vision is to create a school environment that is resilient and cares about mental health and wellness, where students receive support as needed, and where talking and learning about mental health reduces and eliminates the stigma surrounding mental health issues, and where we put more supportive and inclusive learning environment to enhance all students' potential for success. So went through that pretty quickly, actually. So I will just kind of talk about our upcoming sessions that we have on Thursday and Friday. Thursday, we have a really nice session that Michael is hosting, supporting student mental health at home and at school. And then on Friday, we have Jeremy talking about technology and telepractice for beginners as well as advanced users. And as a little treat for kind of making it to the end of this session, we are also going to be offering a 10% promotion code that'll be valid on until September 30th, 2020. And I think right now we can open the floor to some questions, if those have started to trickle in. And I think I do have some. I also just wanted to mention that we are currently exploring I'm working very closely on a number of partnerships within the country, and we are currently exploring moving this onto Canadian servers. So as this kind of evolves and we kind of further that conversation around, if this is something that is of interest to you, you can always reach out to me directly. This seems like a very powerful, all-encompassing solution. I'd really like to see how it can work for our board. Would we be able to have a demonstration? Absolutely. I would love to give a demonstration. And I can do that. I have another colleague, Jeremy, and we kind of do it in tandem. We do it together. We also have regional assessment consultants. We're all very knowledgeable and would love to schedule some time with you to follow up and take that on. Oh, there's more questions. There's a lot more questions. Okay, sorry, just getting used to the system. Given the current environment surrounding COVID-19 pandemic, many students are opting for distance learning. Can aimswebPlus be used in a distance learning environment? Yes, it can. Of course, that is something that we can explore a little bit in greater detail as we go through the demonstration. But I mentioned throughout this earlier in the session that there is going to be some capabilities for grades 2 to 8 to answer this kind of remotely from where they are. It's the kindergarten and grade 1 students that we'd have to kind of feel around a little bit, but again, this is something that we can all, talk together on. Is there a minimum number of students that we can have on aimsweb at our school? No minimum. If you wanted to kind of start it out in a few classrooms, what I would recommend is perhaps grade 4 student, if we're talking at a board, a few grade students within the board at different schools, so we have comparative data that we can use. And if we're just using this at one school, then no, there's no minimum. We can go ahead. How can I buy aimsweb? You call your assessment consultant and let us know that you're interested, and we'll set that up for you. It is a per student charge, so there needs to be a little bit of a dialogue going on, and we can go ahead and create a quote for you. I've heard there are a couple other products that complement aimsweb. You mentioned a couple such as Fast3Best and Shaywitz. Does Review also work with aimsweb? So Review is perfect for the behavior components that will perfectly tie in with the Fast3Best. And then the aimsweb is going to complement with the Shaywitz and the literacy and the math components. So together you have a really nice bundle complementing both the academic side and the behavior side of things. It is a complementary platform. Actually, for the Fast3Best, you're technically clicking out into Review 360, but it is another way to monitor, I would say monitor and track behavior. If you wanted to kind of look at a complete picture, again, I would say reach out to your assessment consultant and we can start brainstorming a few ideas how they can all be used together. I think I got all the questions. Oh. Would you be able to customize a presentation for our school based on our needs? Absolutely. I would love to do that. And that I really just have to kind of look at our calendar. We set up a time and we can actually get that going within the next 2 weeks, because I know with back to school coming around, we're all kind of looking for something soon. Are there any components within aimsweb that may be customized? Ooh, good question. I would argue yes, although without kind of knowing what you're looking for, the reports are very, very customizable. So again, if we're looking for comparative information with grade 4 students within the board across the northern part of the province, yes, we'd of course want to customize that information. We can customize certain classrooms where this group of students needs to be benchmarked or we need a screening out. So yes, of course there are some restrictions, but I think for the most part, what you would be looking for, we'd be able to do no problem. But just to close this off, we are very interested in talking to you guys on a more one-on-one level about what aimsweb can do for your classroom or your school or your board or your district. And it is a behemoth of a platform. So really scheduling some time to go through a live demonstration, I think would be the best option. And we can set that up pretty quickly. I've heard of the new Shaywitz Dyslexia Screener. Is that available on its own, or does it have to be purchased within aimsweb? No, it can be purchased on its own. You can go ahead and check out our website, pearsonclinical.ca, and then just type in the Shaywitz and you'll have your purchasing options available there. But of course, if you want to talk to your assessment consultant a little bit more about that, we can do that as well. Okay, I just wanted to reiterate my contact information up here, nadira.chand@pearson.com. You can email me directly and we can set up the demonstration, to go in and go through that together. Or if you want to reach out to your local assessment consultant, that is no problem as well. And if there's anything else, you can always give me a call. I think that's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining.